So the freedom of speech and the freedom to protest has been, with an asterisk these days. There have been all kind of protests with the squashing of dissenting voices on college campuses. And as of right now, there are about 100 different protests going on college campuses. So the latest, and this is from CNN, college campus protests highlight tensions in Biden's coalition. So I am sure that Biden is like really trying to get this over and done with, but the students don't seem to want to give in and go home just yet. All right, so Joe Biden's hopes of recreating the coalition that lifted him to office in 2020 are coming under threat as the protest movement against Israel's war in Gaza spreads across college campuses. Pro Israel Democrats are now pushing the president to respond more forcefully to anti Semitic incidents at colleges and universities, echoing calls from Republicans, including former President Donald Trump, who have cast increasingly combative demonstrations as a mark of incompetence inside the White House. So they want them to come down on protesters. No protesting, no freedom of speech for these students. For months, Democrats on Capitol Hill in the highest echelons of the party have approached the conflict in Gaza with relative caution. But as the protest encampments dig in, college officials weigh canceling commencement ceremonies and Republicans ratchet up their attacks. Biden's work to hold together a united front are fraying. The White House and congressional leaders seem to embrace a new, tougher tact Tuesday when discussing the overnight occupation of an academic building by protesters at Columbia University. They use this picture, but I do want to point out that the majority of these protests have been peaceful so far. President Biden respects the right to free expression, but protests must be peaceful and lawful. Forcibly taking over buildings is not peaceful, it is wrong, White House Deputy Press Secretary Andrew Bates said, adding that the president condemns the use of the word in Antifada as he has the other tragic and dangerous hate speech displayed in recent days. Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer also denounced the protesters at Columbia, suggesting that the demonstrations were poised to veer into criminality. Smashing windows with hammers, taking over university buildings is not free speech, the New York Democrat said. It is lawlessness, and those who did it should promptly face the consequences that are not merely a slap on the wrist. The administration's shift in tone, though, is unlikely to quiet the calls for Biden to take a heavier hand with the protesters, but it could further risk the president's standing among younger voters who, according to recent polls, overwhelmingly disapprove his handling of the war. Also Tuesday, the College Democrats of America, a mainstream Biden-backing organization, put in its lot with the campus protesters, many of whom are Jewish themselves. It praised the bravery of students willing to endure arrest and suspension and to stand up for the rights and dignity of the Palestinian people. While the group reiterated its support for Biden and other Democrats in the coming election, it also issued a warning to the president's campaign. Each day that Democrats failed to stand united for a permanent ceasefire, two-state solution, and recognition of a Palestinian state, more and more youth find themselves disillusioned with the party, the College Democrats wrote. See, is this our Vietnam? This seems like our Vietnam, this generation's Vietnam. We are tired of war. These students are tired of war. And social media is highlighting that. That's probably why these Democrats and Republicans came together so quickly, because they were so quick to need to squash what is going around, because the students are sharing all kinds of pictures and videos. So maybe that's the reason why, but they are disillusioned with this war. All right, escalating tensions on Monday before protesters at Columbia took over the school building. Nearly 24 House Democrats issued an ultimatum to members of the university board: clear the protest encampments or step down. The pro-Palestinian activists who occupied Hamilton Hall at Columbia said that they had liberated in it in honor of a young Palestinian child, Hind Rejab, who was unalived alongside her family in late January during the Israeli military offensive in Gaza City. Outside on Tuesday, students chanted, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free and Palestine will live forever." Video obtained by CNN shows. Protesters also displayed banners from a window reading Ifa Intifada, the Arabic word for uprising, and Hens Hall, according to the video. Republicans have moved quickly to message around the latest developments. House Speaker Mike Johnson said at a news conference Tuesday that Republicans would hold these universities accountable for their failure to protect Jewish students on campus. "We need more clarity on the issue," Johnson previously told reporters. "We need everyone from the president on down to speak out about this and say that it is clearly wrong and Jewish students aren't second-class citizens and they can attend class just like everyone else." Unlike the Democrats, GOP officials have been in lockstep, denouncing the protests and related efforts to curb Israel's military campaign, which has unalived more than 34,000 people in Gaza, according to the enclave's health ministry. Trump, the party's presumptive 2024 nominee, has gone so far as to claim that Jewish Democrats, who include critics of Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's right-wing government, hate their religion, and he has sought to yoke Biden to the least savory characters in the college protest hubs. The GOP also plans to put the spotlight on Democrats with a planned vote Wednesday on the Anti-Semitism Awareness Act, a bill introduced by Representative Mike Lawler, a swing district freshman from the New York suburbs. The legislation has Democratic co-sponsors, but uses a definition for anti-Semitism, tying it to support for Israel, rejected by many party moderates, progressives, and Jewish advocates. It is expected to pass the chamber, though, and likely to become a political wedge come November. Back and forth among Democrats heated up last week when Florida Representative Jared Moskowitz responded to a statement from Bernie Sanders condemning Democratic leadership's decision not to bring up for a vote his amendment to end offensive military aid to Netanyahu's war machine. Moskowitz, in a social media post, suggested Sanders was evading a more important issue. "Bernie, now do anti-Semitism. Why so quiet?" The next day, New York Representative AOC, who has been bird dogged by some left-wing activists for not taking a hard enough line against Israel, came to Sanders' defense. Senator Sanders' family was unalived in the Holocaust, AOC wrote on social media. "He dedicates his every moment to realizing Tikkun Olam. His commitment to protecting innocents in Gaza stems from his Jewish values. He and many other Jewish leaders deserve better than to be treated this way. This is shameful." Moskowitz responded by relaying his own family's ordeal during the Holocaust and pointing to his votes for aid to Israel and Gaza. "We see each other at work," he then told AOC. "We are both better than doing this here on social media." 1968 Redux. In a letter Monday to Columbia University's Board of Trustees, Representatives Josh Gottheimer of New Jersey and Dan Goldman of New York, along with nearly 24 other Democratic co-signers, exhorted the school, whose president has already called the New York Police Department, to disperse demonstrators to immediately disband the encampment. The NYPD's first effort failed, and the scenes from campus provided rocket fuel for further nationwide protests. Parallels between the current, increasingly hostile standoff between Democratic leaders and activists and the anti-war movement of the 1960s, or more recently, Occupy Wall Street, are easy to find, especially in the rhetoric used by Republicans to capitalize on the tumult, as Richard Nixon did in 1968 when he called for law and order over the forces of anarchy and what the right then called the lunatic fringe. So that is what is going on. It just seems like there is the messaging between the Democrats, because y'all have to realize that the Democrats have a variety of people. They are not in lockstep because the Democrats is literally a big umbrella of people. So they're going to have to get their messaging under control and under wraps before. I've been grabbing videos from TikTok because it is very important that you're able to see some of the people that are talking about it, where the information about these protests are not necessarily filtered through the media. Even though some of this is coming from the media, it's definitely important to see these things from the ground level. And that is what is so powerful about TikTok. So it should be fair use to be using these, because this is a conversation starter. We're continuing the conversation, and we're bringing this information and sharing this information with a wider audience. All right, here you go. Here are some more. Here's some videos that I have compiled from TikTok.
There are now over 100 academic institutions with students protesting right now. This map has been updated to show where the new locations are at. For those of you wondering where I found this map comes from the Wikipedia article April 2024 Israel-Hamas War Protests on University Campuses in the United States. Once again, it's important to note that these protests are also international too, with universities and cities across the world joining the student protesters. From looking at the latest news reports, many universities are not siding with the students and in fact holding the line on not divesting. In fact, right now, Columbia University told protesters that they had to leave by 2 p.m. today or face suspension. A direct quote from that notice said, "If you do not leave by 2 p.m., you will be suspended pending further investigation." I've said it before and I'll say it again, students have a fundamental right to protest because they are paying the institution being there, regardless if it's a public or private institution. If the event was anything else, like a tailgate or a concert, music, party, festivity, or whatnot that didn't relate to protesting, no one would bat an eye. And yet when students and faculty organize around a cause that they wholeheartedly believe in, all of a sudden that means that we need to get law enforcement involved? From everything that I've seen so far, the protests have been mostly peaceful, like 95% peaceful. I won't say it's been completely peaceful because there have been some instances of altercations, but the altercations have been perpetuated by law enforcement against the protesters. I'm continuously learning about what's going on, and I encourage you all to do the same. Look at first-hand accounts before you make an assumption about what's going on.
We will not be moved unless by force. We'd like to reiterate that our presence on this encampment was never a security risk. In fact, it bonded members of the Columbia community in unprecedented ways on this campus. People from various walks of life coalesced to deliver food and supplies, to do their homework on the lawn, to bring their professors to community, to read a book at the People's Library, or to sing around a guitar song. We will not be moved by these intimidation tactics. You can see outside you now that the students are mobilized. There's hundreds of them here today. They will not be moved. We demand divestment.
They're a bunch of little babies that don't understand the reality of the world around them.
Weakness and inaction from campus leaders has allowed universities to become cauldrons of criminal chaos.
In a perfect world, we would remove all funding for these schools, as well as remove the student visas of foreigners that are protesting, yelling death to America. They need to go back home.
The demands are reasonable, in my opinion, and I'm concerned about the heavy-handed, repressive response from Columbia's president, from New York City's mayor.
Smashing windows with hammers and taking over university buildings is not free speech. And those who commit such acts are doing nothing to convince others that their cause is just.
I do believe they should lose their funding, including student aid.
I do not support taking over buildings. That is not appropriate.
It hurts me, honestly, to see America falling into this. Again, I am Syrian, and I see dictatorship in this. I see tyranny in this. Is criminal about being on the ground? You are under arrest. Can you read my rights to me? I mean, I would like to know what's criminal.
You are under arrest for criminal trespass.
And I'm not letting this happen for this country, which I love and I belong to. I'm an American citizen, and I came to this country for what it stands for. And every American should be concerned. Every American should be concerned about what's happening to this country.